Oh, well, this nonsense that's going on all over social media, all over the TV. You've got comedians talking out their ass in America about the Ginger Minge and his little critter girlfriend. Who, by the way, if you trace her family, she is Swiss royalty, okay? This little wife of his is no little street girl. This girl is connected to Swiss royalty. Okay, that's Templars. Now, let's just try and calm this down a bit, because they're obviously playing up a great game to get you on one side or another, okay? So they're trying to grab everybody that hates the royal family against everybody that doesn't. You're missing the point completely. You're totally missing the point. Now, let's get a couple of things straight. William of Orange and Mary, okay? Yes, he was a soldier. Basically, that's all William was. Brought in over here just to make sure that Rome didn't get back in, okay? But when you actually study William and Mary, because remember, Mary was an English girl, okay? She was England, was Mary. Married to William of Orange. Now, let's just get a few things straight. You can see clearly when you study William and Mary that they sussed pretty quickly what was attempting to be done by Rome through William, because they thought he was an easy play. And he probably was, but Mary wasn't, okay? And obviously she managed to show William what he needed to see. Now, if you want to get an insight as to is that correct, that William and Mary did actually go against the Roman influence in our highest office, you've to look into Mary and William's disdain with Anne, who would go on to be queen. Now, Anne had as her chambermaid Sarah Churchill. Okay? Are you getting this? The Marlboroughs. The very bunch of critters that first started to undermine this country by bringing in Oliver Cromwell, raising all that up. Rome sent General Monk up into Scotland, anywhere away from England, so that Cromwell could do what he did. He didn't do anything good for this country. They undermined it, handed it over to the moneylenders, from which we got the Bank of England. You know? But back to William and Mary. You really need to get a grip of this. William and Mary and Anne fell out. This is before Anne became queen. William and Mary were in power, because she wouldn't get rid of Sarah Churchill. They knew what the Marlboroughs were up to, William and Mary, okay? Anne didn't. Refused to get rid of Sarah Churchill, because obviously she was dependent on her. Now, Queen Anne lost 19 children. And when you're the chambermaid, you've got the opportunity to poison those children, get rid of them. She had miscarried, okay? All these children, still, etc. Sarah Churchill. She refused to listen to her sister Mary. You can see what was going on with William Orange and Mary. You can see. That's why you got your Bill of Rights. You know what I'm saying? That's why you got your coronation oath. Because it ensured that they upheld the Church of England. You can see that was what was happening. Now, that was undermined by Edward VII, who got Kitchener to change the mandate of Freemasonry from upholding the Church of England to upholding what was the then coming Israel. You know, that was sorted out because the War Cabinet took power in this country before the First World War, and people don't realise that, and they're still running it today. This is why the remembrance are asked every morning, are we still at war? In Parliament, it opens and they say yes. You're all under a war footing, and you don't get it because you're too busy playing with yourself and watching Coronation Street. And you think you're fantastic and great. You think you're British. British is an empire. England is a nation. Scotland is a nation. Ireland is a nation. Wales didn't exist until 1707. It was England. You know, even the Welsh, how thick are the Welsh? If you don't know that, then you're brain dead. Completely. Can't you see that it's all been about dividing up the British Isles? William and Mary. Sarah Churchill operated for the Marlboroughs, because he was a Marlborough. Yeah, money lenders, Dutch royal family. I don't think people realise that in the back end of this secret cabal, the Dutch royal family have always been above and controlled the British royal family since the Civil War. Okay? These are things you don't know, and you're not going to get to know because you won't get this stuff in the library. Go and enter the mystery school, they'll show you this stuff. Okay? You think you know what you're talking about, and you haven't got a clue, and now you're falling for this game called bullshit all over social media and on the television because you're choosing sides. The game is this. You think it's all about attacking the family. It's not just to do with the family. The family need attacking. They've debauched. They're debauched. And Elizabeth Mary Windsor has been controlled since being a child. She didn't take the correct coronation oath. She hasn't upheld anything apart from the temple crown. She's a member of the inner temple. You've remembered this. So back to the oranges. Sarah Churchill was controlling Anne until Anne finally saw the game and got rid of her. But by then, it was too late. But you could see Anne backtracking on a lot of things. So the things that were set up under Anne weren't Anne's, it were Sarah Churchill. So your Act of Union, which needs to go. Graham Moore is right. You need to listen to this guy. If he doesn't know anything about the English common law, then he doesn't know anything. But he does know what English common law is. I know what English common law is, but I also know there's a higher jurisdiction. But that doesn't put us in opposition. It does not put us in opposition in any way, shape or form. Graham Moore is doing some good work. Obviously, he's fallen for the Jesuit line because he's in support of Trump. That's fine. It doesn't mean that his other work in relation to English common law is incorrect. It's correct. Okay? That's what they're killing. The protocols of learned elder design are very clear that the last nation to be brought under this garbage is England. Why? Because that's the home of common law. And if you want to go back to where common law comes, because the Druids created all this stuff. The Druids and the remnants of the Trojans, King Molmutius, his son Belinus, Brennius were a bit of an idiot. He got kicked out. But Belinus was the son of Molmutius, Cornish kings. Okay? You don't even understand this history because you're all looking at Saxon chronicles. Forget it. This idea that this country were loaded up with Saxons is complete garbage. You're all taking it off this fantasy about the Holy Grail. Eleanor of Aquitaine, a complete psycho bitch. Okay? Married to Henry II, mother of King John, and they destroyed Henry II, who, until she came along, was actually a really solid, sound guy. Plantagenet. Yeah? Eleanor of Aquitaine was a psychotic bitch. Through her sons, one off to crusade to grab all the landed gentry off to crusade, John set up a system whereby once the crusaders had set off to crusade, all the crusader knights and the landed gentry were encouraged to hand over their estates in trust. Can you see where this trust stuff comes? To somebody they liked, they trusted. No sooner had they gone off to crusade, but John and his sheriffs were making it very clear to all these trustees that the crown under John would support their claim to all these lands. This is how long it's been going on, folks. The lands pretty much got took asunder from the landed gentry we had back in the Middle Ages while they all opted up to crusade. And this happened across Europe. People don't realise what the Templars actually did. It's because you believe Dan Brown. But Eleanor of Aquitaine, you see, back in that day, things were getting so bad, the population wanted Arthur to return. Okay? Now, let's not get into the ins and outs of Arthur. There were two Arthurs, yeah, one ended up dying in America. But we'll not get into that, but let's just get it right. Welsh Chronicles, as they're called today. They're not Welsh Chronicles. They're the Chronicles of the Britons. That's us. Okay? That's who we are. Now, Scythians, if you want to go further back than that. The Germans were Scythians. Germanic. Genuine ones, so named by the Greeks. Okay? That's who the Scythians were. There was another sect of Scythians that were a bit of a mimic, and they were a bit of a shower of shitheads. But that, again, forget it. If you want to know who we are as a culture in this country, England, Scythian is good. Genuine ones. That's who the Scythians are. And the Germans took that from the Greek and became known as the Germanic tribes. Okay? So, you really start to have to understand that Eleanor of Aquitaine, once these Britons were looking for Arthur to return, which meant they weren't obeying Eleanor and Henry, okay, she had all the poets by commission to write this fantasy. A total fantasy about Arthur, his knights, and the Holy Grail. Okay? Merlin was the most important player in that game. Not Arthur. Merlin. Okay? Merlin was a druid. Alright? So Merlin represented the old Britain. Briton, not Britain. We're not talking about Britannia. That's an occupation title. So, you've got to understand that Sarah Churchill, once Queen Anne realised what was going on, she got rid. But it was too late. Sarah had done her damage, as had the Marlboroughs that she was part of previously. And then you've got Winston from that set of shits. He was a big bastard. Winston Churchill was probably the biggest mass murderer of his day. Not only here, he was tasked to kill as many Australians and New Zealand men as he could. Gallipoli. He killed 70,000. Slaughtered them. That put Australia without its warriors. Yeah? They did it against Australia in Vietnam. You're not seeing the game with these wars that you big up as like they're some kind of fantastic. The First World War. The soldiers didn't die in the main from bombs and bullets. They were vaccinated. They were in the hospitals where they were using X-ray for the first time. They were also setting up radar everywhere for the first time. Okay? This is what was going on in the First World War. The Second World War is a complete and utter fantasy in relation to how you have been brought up to see it. England didn't really play a big role in it apart from kicking it off. Not England, the inner city. The real war in the Second World War was between Germany and Russia, White Russia. And they annihilated each other. Moscow. Russia wasn't nothing like it was. They took that over. With Catherine the Great, right over to Siberia. But all that area was actually the Mongol races, the Turkic tribes, etc. Not white Russian Christians. The Bolsheviks took care of the first part. The Second World War took care of the second part. You're not seeing the game as it is. You never have seen the game because you live in a fantasy world. Because you watch telly and movies. You really need to understand that what William and Mary and then Anne created was to enforce England as a realm on its own. Outside of Rome, outside of everything. And it was an attempt to remove themselves from the Dutch family. You need to start to realise this. This charade today, and it started with Diana. And I've said this before. I mean, I haven't looked at that game for a long time because there's nothing new coming out. But back in the day, I spent 10 years, not every day, but as a constant study to see what the hell had gone on there. And the one thing at the end of it, as I've said before on videos, the only evidence missing from the whole charade was the fact that she died. Spencer, tied to Churchill. That's who that woman were. All right, and if you go from certain quarters, James Goldsmith was her father. Okay? Are you getting this? So now, naturally, one of her sons, who's we know is not Charles, but it doesn't look like other than Charles is either. That was King Juan Carlos of Spain, who was the King of Jerusalem when he sired William. Yeah? William's knocking on the wall, remember? They're all knocking on the wall in that bloody stupid place called Israel. You know, if you want to be a power, you've got to pray to the wall. That's a mental illness for a start. Okay? But what I'm saying to you is this. You're taking sides here going, oh, they're horrible, oh, these are lovely. No. The Queen, Philip, they're all actors. They're actors because they're controlled by the Rothschilds. The Rothschilds took over complete control of the royal family in this nation and sired Queen Victoria. The Rothschilds sired Queen Victoria, and it would appear all her offspring after that, or save one maybe, but who knows. That's why all her offspring became royalty in the entire European landmass, because they were all part of one family. Now, the Rothschilds are only the financiers for the hidden royalty. That's the black nobility. Okay? That's who the Rothschilds are. That's why you see them in everything. They don't actually control it as individuals themselves. Yeah? They control the money, the finance, which means they have the biggest intelligence network on the planet. Thurnham taxes. That's a powerful family from back in the day. Foreigners, that's who they operated for. And Medici. Where are them today? No, everything's gone underground. They disappear. They don't disappear. They just disappear from history. But they're still there. You've got to start to understand that this whole game is about demolishing, not this royal family, which needs demolishing or removing. It's about demolishing England. It's about demolishing common law. As I've said, our common law comes from the Druids. Alfred pulled together what was already existent. The term Viking, people have misnomer. The term Viking doesn't depict a race. Viking is an adventure, to go on an adventure raiding. That's what the term Viking means. And when you look at the DNA of England, they've obsessed with trying to find Saxon heritage. There isn't any. Because we're Scythians. The Danes were Scythians. The Swedes were Scythians. Yeah? Norway were Scythians. The Germanics were Scythians. That's who we are. Okay? You need to get a grip of this. What we call Vikings in the films were Varangian Guard, or Northmen that were tied to Byzantium. And they were doing Viking, i.e. adventure and raiding. So the might of what you think were the Vikings wasn't anything of the sort. It was a military order controlled by Byzantium. Constantinople, if you will, whatever you want to call it. Now Turkey. You know, somebody sent me some today reading history, and they're talking about Anatolia, which is what we know as Turkey today. It wasn't filled with Turkic tribes. There was a mass migration from Anatolia here to Ireland back in the day, because they were always being pressured off by all these Turkic tribes, these Mongols, yeah, the eastern races, yeah. You just really don't have any idea of what history is. But let's, off that, focus to today. If you focus to one side over another over this royal stuff, then you are ignorant. And you need to start listening to people that do know what's going on. This is all about destroying England. The common law, the constitutional realm. We're not a democracy. Never have been. We're a constitutional monarchy, and we have a parliament in which the barons, the landed gentry, could act in accordance with the people within their land. Okay? And it were right that we removed all the power from the monarch. It had to be done. That's what William and Mary did. They put it in the coronation oath, so that fixed the office of monarch and whoever became the monarch to uphold in this realm. Edward VII through Kitchener removed that. Freemasonry hasn't upheld the Church of England and the realm since Kitchener. They've been getting ready for this garbage. British Israel. Imperial Israel. That's what it is. You go to Israel, there's more Jesuit and Holy See regalia and signals and symbols on the buildings than you'd ever find. And if you want to get into that, there's a guy from South Africa, a professor, a white guy. There's nothing he doesn't know about Israel and how it relates to Back to Rome, the empire. The Vatican is a puppet of the empire now, completely. And each time these popes have gone crazy in the past, it's because the Byzantines have got their man in. But more today, stop allowing them to dismantle your nation. Stop allowing them to remove your common law. They're already doing it in the courts now. Lancashire Constabulary is operating under NICE Limited. That's a company in Israel that's pushing all your courts and law enforcement into the internet, governed by AI. The AI game is being administered by the Sanhedrin. It's not even the Jews. You know, I've been babbling on about this for a long time. Yes, there's a lot of Jews involved in it because they've been suckered. Just like the Christians have been suckered to become Zionists. You know? And Islam has been operating for this empire for 1,000 years. It's the sword of it. You know? Because it's not true Islam in its sense. It's this debauch thing, like Zionism is a debauchment of Christianity as it is a debauchment of the Hebrew tradition. You really need to get a grip and focus to who you are. Are you moral or are you a fruitcake? If you're a fruitcake, you're going to get dragged into this charade, this new act that they've got going, which is to destroy the core place in this world that gave us civilization and gave you freedoms and rights. This is why they hate it. You know, the common law is all about you. Your freedom. Your rights. Because we use the term rights because it's enshrined in the Bill of Rights. But originally, if you go biblical, it's freedoms. But we now term it rights, okay? And we can still term it rights because to you out there, it doesn't mean the legalese garbage. To you, rights mean I can. Yeah? And that's what we've got to also remember. The legalese only operates in the fruitcake realm. It doesn't operate for you. You understand words as you understand them. What you don't understand is that these other bunch that's taking over, they're using the words, but they have a different meaning. That's the law society. The law society has its own language, which any society is allowed to have. And you don't know this. You know, you've not got English judiciary anymore. You've got Temple Crown judiciary. The Temple Crown is the unincorporated crown, from which it controls the entire corporate crown that's all tied to a figurehead, Queen Elizabeth II, which is a fiction. It's a fictitious title. And you need to understand this. You know, you really need to start to understanding the office of monarch is the highest office in the constitutional realm of England. The book stops there. Nothing could go on beneath that office if it's outside the realm, outside the common law. But it has been. It's been happening, and it's been happening since 1954 and before. But 1954, they got the complete puppet in. Elizabeth Mary Alexander Windsor. Or, Saxe-Coburg-Gotha. The Coburgs are the most powerful Venetian black nobility family you can imagine. And you just don't know this because you're not interested. But if you're going to go with this piffle, Piers Morgan, tied into who? Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein. Yeah? Stop pretending he's like a good guy or he's a complete fraud. They all are. It's an act. That you saw the charade on the TV the other day is an act. It's a game to get you excited. Look what's happened to you because you're totally obsessed with the television. It controls your entire life. Because if it's not on the television, you don't believe it. You don't believe it. You don't read books anymore. And if you do, you're reading fantasy. You know, garbage, piss, rubbish, Dan Brown, all that shite. All based, as I said, on the works of what Eleanor of Aquitaine set going to stop the English, the Britons, as they were then, from calling back for Arthur. Or some man that would stand up and become as Arthur was for this land. You know, you're running out of time, people. You need to snap out of your nonsense and start to think and recognise this charade for what it is. Because if you don't, the plan is to sacrifice England and hand you over as slaves in the same way that they intend to do with white Americans. Alright? You know, it's ridiculous. It's the only country on the planet that's never, ever, ever had anything to do with slavery as a law is England. And the South in America, in the Civil War, the South was the best idea for slavery then. It existed. But they looked after the slaves. It was the North that held slaves and didn't give a monkey's toss. They just used the game in order to sanction what they'd done when they took over the South in America. And remember, folks, in Lancashire, the cotton industry, the American South and Lancashire, the cotton industry, were a power on their own. They were a power on their own because it was global and it was the cotton industry. Yeah? That had to be destroyed. So the American Civil War wasn't just about destroying the South. It was about destroying the might and the power of Lancashire and the cotton industry. And did you know that? No, you didn't. Why didn't you know that? Because you're not interested. You're more interested in what Lady Gaga's wearing and is she showing her fanny in her latest video. You know? Think about how pathetic and how immoral you've become in yourself. Instead of running around calling everybody else. I can do what I do because I'm a moral man. And if you're not moral, you need to be addressing yourself, not throwing your crap around everywhere else. I am a moral man and I can throw my crap around everywhere else where I see immorality. So don't fall for this game, people. It's the country and the realm and the common law that they're trying to destroy. We need this royal family out. The Venetians, black nobility, pure evil. So the family we don't care about, but it's an act. Your Queen's an act. In fact, the only real bad guy in all this was Philip. But he was mentored by the Dutch. Prince Bernhard was Prince Philip's mentor. After Mountbatten or Battenberg bit the dust. Okay? And Battenberg bit the dust because he wanted in on the triumvirate of the drugs, the opium. And they weren't letting him. They weren't playing ball. And what do they always do? Bring out the terrorist organisations they've got set up in Ireland. Everybody thinks he were IRA. Just like you all think he were IRA killed the twin from Record Breakers. The McWhirter twins. One of them got killed, you remember? Well, do you know why he got killed? Because when European Union were being formed, he was taking the Queen to court for treason. You don't get to see that either, do you? So what did they do? They bring out the terrorist organisation from Ireland, bang. Everybody thinks he were Irish that killed him. No. He was killed because he was bringing a case for treason against the Queen for pulling us into Europe. Okay? This is how much you don't know. It's about time you started to want to know. Or you're going to lose your country completely and your children are going to be enslaved to the sick minds that they've pumped in here. The sick minds that are all over this world. Mark my words, people. The future is not funny if you don't get off your ass and start listening to them that know and moving with any movements that start to move against this nonsense in order we can keep this realm intact. Because if they lose this realm, there is no freedom left in the world whatsoever. Same with America. America is the power to keep the realm. And if you want to understand that, you've got to study the Native American histories. Because the English weren't hated by the Native Americans. The English that were over there were friends. It's when the British Empire came over. That's when everything changed. You need to understand the distinction between England and the British Empire. And until you do, you're going to be at the mercy of this Hollywood script called Harry, Merkel and the royal family. Okay? And with that, I shall say, till the next time.